see it in the movie or on the monitor that they're going to have when we actually shoot here, which will be able to show us where geographically we are.
That's tails. Very hoity-toity.
Almost this entire movie has been shot in the soundstage in very controlled settings, and I think that's a great thing for this movie. Only going out to Oregon for a location has allowed us to really create, I think, a world that all these worlds take place in. And I guess I always saw this as the Wizard of Oz. So I always wanted this to be something that could be of one mind, and I think that we'll hopefully be able to do that. And part of that is because we're on a soundstage. Most of the time we're very controlled. After 2,000 years of praying and wishing and hoping to become real, David has been underwater, and the water is frozen and become ice. And now we're in the Ice Age, and the robots have come, and they've started to dig and to try to discover their roots, and they've come upon David.
Cut, great.
At the moment, Stephen's on another sound stage over shooting at the Lions building, and then David's going to jump in the water, and then Stephen will be coming here tomorrow to shoot on this sound stage. My job is to be always ahead of him, because he doesn't stop, and he usually comes early, ahead of time. So we're expecting him any moment, in fact. So we're trying to work out all the last-minute details, and tomorrow we'll have a big ice machine in here blowing ice all over this. We want to make sure that this is what he had in mind. Since the last time he saw this, this was just a very roughed-out little space, and now it's far more developed.
As a set designer or a production designer, everything I get to be involved with is moving from one entire world to another. And it's like each thing in some ways is separate and almost entirely different, even contradictory. But they're all in this one journey that forms the basis of David's experience in this movie. And it's his evolution, but it's our evolution. Because where this movie goes, we're ultimately looking back on all of this. And this was what we went through, and then what David went through in order to get to where he needed to be at the very end of the movie, which is way out there.
Undress. At Cybertronics of New Jersey, artificial being has reached its highest form. Universally adopted, Mecca, the basis for hundreds of models, serving the human race in all the multiplicity of daily life.
I really saw it as a sort of an adventure story where this little boy is living in a very sort of middle class, upper middle class environment, which is very controlled and very simple to look at. The clothes for that, we just did a very classic American clothes, not too much color, not too much shape. Tried to do generic clothes that wouldn't date too much, so the film could look periodless. And so I tried to do, to give it the science fiction element, just very classic generic clothes. And then had a bit more fun with the adventure as that boy goes off on it. Once he's thrown out by the mother,
oh, I have to go!
Then the adventure starts.
Why don't you get in there? Boy, hey, what's your name?
So then we got much more inventive for the clothes. But even then, the clothes were very controlled. I didn't go into a mad fantasy land. Even Rouge City is, if you look at it, is very, very controlled.
Couldn't tell a joke from a poke.
I think originally when we started on the film, it was going to be much more fantastical, much more catwalky, fashiony. And I think as Stephen worked through the film himself, I think he brought it down into a more real place. And so in the end, I tried to do a sort of futuristic Las Vegas city that had all the elements, trashy people, classy, sexy people. Like when you go to a city isn't populated with one style of people. And so I usually get a series of photographs. And in fact, for this, I did lots of pasted out boards with all sorts of photographs that had nothing really to do with anything, except that when you looked at them all, it gave an atmosphere. And then I tried to design the atmosphere, not the clothes.
Hey, Joe, What do you know?
Hey, Jane, how's the game?
I can't accept this!
Well, with Frances playing Mrs. Swinton, we had her over at the wardrobe, and I just tried on literally hundreds of clothes on her just to see what worked. And usually you don't have the luxury of that time to do that, but I must have had her there for about, 2 or 3 times for 4-hour sessions where I just went and got loads of clothes together, and we put them all together and and then out of those sessions we photographed everything, and Mrs. Swinton just started to emerge out of that process.
Sorry.
It's like rehearsing. It's the designer rehearsing with an actor, like a director would rehearse the scenes. We rehearsed the clothes.
He's a gift from you.
The process for designing Haley's character was actually the most difficult of all for the film, because when I started early on, Stephen and the production, they weren't really sure how robotic everything was going to be. The robots hadn't been designed, and he was playing a robot, but they didn't want it to look too robotic. And we all agreed originally that the clothes and the look would be much more robotic and slightly stranger and more science fiction-y. But as Stephen worked on the script and as he worked into the film, I think he carried on thinking about it and writing the script and made the boy more and more real and less robotic.
When's your birthday?
And in the end, we used very ordinary clothes. I just controlled the color and the pattern, and then they did that very simple stylized makeup on him. And we came down to a very, very simple look on that boy.
Try it there now.
New category.
Stephen wanted him originally to have we talked about Dracula and other romantic heroes from the past, and I think what he wanted to distill was the essence of a sort of romantic, sexy hero. Take the elements of those with a dangerous quality, and then take all those elements and distill them down and then push them into a slightly futuristic thing. And quite by chance, I found this material, which is actually fishing line woven as a satin. And it looks like on the screen like liquid metal. And we just made a sort of basically frock coat suit and give the frock coat a slightly Victorian feel to it, which was a traditional, and originally he had a big cravat, but we decided to lose that and make a much simpler, it was actually a plastic shirt we made in the end.
Patricia, once you've had a lover robot, you'll never want a real man again.
And then V. Neal, worked endlessly as we were doing, we did hundreds of versions of clothes for him. The makeup gives him just enough unreality, and the clothes are basically made of plastic, yet they're made like normal clothes. And I did endless romantic shirts, and the one we came down to is my idea. It looks a bit like a sort of a robotic Victorian romantic hero crossed with sort of Elvis Presley in a way. That's really the look, I think.
It's Joe, at your service.
Over the years, I was getting phone calls from Stanley Kubrick, probably from the late 1980s or so, about some technical question here or there, and it was always really neat to pick up the phone and there's, hey, it's Stanley here. And they would come out of nowhere. And then I got a call one time saying, he's got this project that he's interested in doing, and he wanted me to come over to England and take a look at it and talk to him about it. And we had just finished Jurassic Park at that time. And I said, sure, that was great. And ILM was nice enough to pay our way over there, and Ned Gorman, my producer, went over with me at the time, and we spent a Thanksgiving day with Stanley Kubrick. And it was very nice. He'd set up this wonderful turkey dinner for us and all. And we managed to stay on California time, and he was very charming. It was really a really wonderful evening. A great 5 hours I'll never forget. He'd been thinking about this project called AI, is what he told us, for quite a while, and it involved a robot boy. And he wasn't sure how to make this main character in the movie. If it should be an animatronic character, or if it could be possibly a real character with makeup on, or if it could be computer graphics. And when he's seen the work in Jurassic Park, he thought, boy, maybe there's an opportunity to use some new technology. So I showed him a lot of the work we had done in Jurassic, and he spent, an hour or two asking me a ton of questions about visual effects. He had a clipboard with him and a whole list of questions, and just sort of went right through that list one to one, asking about You know, how do you do this? How do you do that? Do you think you should try something this way or whatever? And he was not terribly forthcoming on the story. I knew about the robot boy, and I knew about New York being flooded. He had a piece of artwork he had done at that time, maybe a couple of them that had been done.
And cut. Got it.
I had been hearing in the rumor mill that Stephen had been approached over something about AI. I didn't even know Stephen had been talking to Stanley. And then I got a call from Stephen saying, you know, could you come down for a meeting? And I think, you know, I'm going to do this AI film. And I just couldn't believe it.
She was on the screen.
And when I got down there, Stephen showed me probably hundreds, maybe 1,000 pieces of artwork. And all during that time, I was still getting calls from Stanley every week or every month about questions, but never telling me specifically what the shots were about, but just questions about effects. And I could see where he was leading to. You know, he was trying to get information on how to do this work.
Okay, here we go.
One of the things that I was excited about doing the show with Stephen was we will actually get the movie made.
Okay, here we go, let's shoot it.
Because I didn't know Stanley was ever going to get it made. And with Stephen doing it, boy, we can do it. And having worked with him so long, I know we communicate pretty well about how to do it.
Hey, Stephen, remember we talked about sort of one swipe? Yeah. If it's outside of the camera range and there's one swipe across.
So let's just spread ourselves out over the whole thing.
One of the things we'd done on the film was to have on the set a pre-visualization system. You could actually see pretty close to the finished shot as you were shooting the actual foreground actors in front of the blue screen. So the cameraman would see the actors in front of the blue screen, but on a TV monitor at that point, we would see the actual composite. We'd see the characters in the background. And that would give Stephen an idea about new shots, because he's not looking with an actor in front of a blue screen anymore. He's looking at a scene with the actor in front of the synthetic environment. And the system we set up was something that the cameraman could pick the camera up and do a handheld shot, walk around like you would as a documentary, find the camera angles anywhere you want, and you would always see the same view that he saw as though the buildings were actually there. So it gave Stephen a tremendous sense of freedom to be inspired. We had targets around, primarily on the ceiling, that were bar-coded, and we had probably about 800 of them. Each one had its own separate identity, and they were being looked at by a camera. And then the software in the computer could identify which barcode fit with which place. So as you pan the camera around, it knew in the computer world where the computer camera was looking around. And they matched up perfectly. And then we could generate in the computer what the buildings looked like, and then do essentially a video composite of the blue screen with this CG background. The movie, you know, encompasses essentially, you know, this contemporary environment that you sort of see for the first part of the film, inside the home when David's growing up and all, getting you set up then for the next kind of surprise when you get out of that world and you see that it's a different city. You know, you're way in the future, it's obvious, and the fabulous Rouge City stuff. And then after we leap to 2,000 years in the future, you know, the movie's about AI, but by the end of the film, we're essentially making it. You know, the movie is mostly synthetic, and AI actually becomes how we're making the movie. We're starting out contemporary, ending up totally artificially in the future.
Shakedown Shantytown.
That's a section where there are a huge variety of robots of various descriptions and builds that are running through the forest, scavenging for other parts. Maybe they've got an arm that's missing, so they're looking for broken robots so that they can retrieve parts. And we used every variety of type of effect to achieve these looks. We had human actors that wore blue, where we would replace parts of their face. The intention being that we would start to see mechanical underpinnings on real human actors. We had some that were puppeteered, that were fully puppeteered robots.
What do we do?
There are some that are fully computer graphics robots. There are some that are, you know, mix and match of everything. And so I think it's really interesting visually, because lots of times you can't quite get a handle on exactly what you're looking at or how it's done.
Why is this happening?
Which is, after all, more fun anyway. So again, when we had an actor, for instance, that has to have a robot replacement, let's say, section of of his or her face. We'd photograph the real actor in the lighting that was the scene, so that when we build that piece, we'll have the correct lighting and kind of the correct texture so that it'll fit in with the scene. But we didn't have that all the time, so sometimes all we have is a chrome ball to reflect what the lighting is, and we just kind of have to fake it after the fact. And so after we have all our designs of robot pieces, we put them in, and we most importantly have to abide by what's the density. Is it contrasty enough? Is it lit correctly? Is the shadowing correct? Those are the things that we look for.
But what does it amount to?
Another audacious shot that Stephen wanted in this film involves what he calls the secretary robot, where William Hurt comes over and touches a couple of buttons on an actress. And he says, and I want her face to just open up, and so that William can reach in and pull out a cube that is her memory cube. And so instead of having a puppet, he didn't want a puppet of any sort. We're going through a fairly tedious method of recreating this woman's face, the actress's face, on kind of a form that is all built in a computer that will be her real skin and her real skin look, so it can open up and reveal the underlying robot mechanism. We did quite a lot of photographs from every angle of her face and all the possible positions where her forehead might be when it opens, where the lower part of her face would be when it opens, and taking all those pieces and literally applying them in a photographic sense onto a computer graphic model that can then animate.
The ILM art department implemented and designed many environments and concepts that were part of the film. A lot of ideas that came from Chris Baker and Rick Carden, Steven Spielberg. And basically what we did is we prepared everything for model and CG work, as well as we designed quite a bit of the sequences more towards the third act. For example, the theme park, the underwater sequence where the ice caps have melted and the waterline has risen and Coney Island is underwater. We kind of set out to make this one area of Coney Island, which is this fictitious old world Italy that was Pinocchio's world. So in order to create this Pinocchio world, or this theme park underwater, we looked at a lot of concept art and sort of try to figure out the schematic of how this would be laid out when we shoot the miniatures. And we did that through some sketches and some paintings, some concept paintings, to sort of develop a mood and a feel for what this place should be.
So what buildings are right around the set?
Dennis Murin decided to shoot it in Dry for Wet. Dry for Wet is simulating underwater photography, but in fact there is no water. We're shooting in a smoke-filled room, and the smoke, the density of smoke, kind of gives you the illusion of being under 100 feet of water. It's just so much easier, photography-wise. The underwater lighting kind of dictates the details of the models. In this case, it's pretty much silhouetted, and whenever the light hits our models, then all the colors pop out. So in many cases, we could kind of get away with we had a lot of freedom, actually. Matter of fact, I would insist that nobody use any sandpaper at all on this model because it was so encrusted with underwater life. It didn't matter. So we could really speed up the construction of the model.
It took many, many buildings to create this set, and it was a very long, complicated stage shoot also here at ILM. to provide all the backgrounds that we needed for those shots. And then once we photographed those backgrounds, then we took a helicopter that we'd built in computer graphics and added that into the shots with all kinds of computer graphic elements to give it a water look. And then Rouge City was also another huge, very complex set.
I agonized over this. It's always a tough call whether or not do you build it in CG, computer graphics, or do you build real physical models. I decided eventually that the first row of buildings, including Bunny behind me, should be actual physical models. And then put background computer graphics buildings in. I think we have every discipline that we know how to do involved in making those composite shots. We have live action blue screen photography. We have huge model construction. We have multiple light paths incorporation. We have computer graphics animation. There's probably no trick in the book that we don't have somehow glued into what these shots will be. And hopefully when audiences see these shots, they'll just say, hey, that's pretty cool.
Mecca restricted area.
For the sequence where Jude Law and Haley are flying through New York City, we have our CG water and we have our CG waterfalls. The building right here, the broken building, is actually a scale miniature, while the building that is crashed into is a computer graphics painting, as are other buildings in the background, and the sky was pieced together from a bunch of pieces. There's a bunch of different things that we had to do. Sometimes the amphibicopter is completely computer generated, like when it's much smaller in frame, or if it has to do some really wacky move. Or the amphibicopter might be a live action stage thing that we shot on blue screen, and we took the windshield off of the amphibicopter while we shot it so that we could put in the reflections of whatever buildings they're flying by instead of all the lights and rigs and set on the stage. And we have to add buildings in the background. They might be model buildings, scale models, or we might have computer generated models, or we might have photographs of buildings that we put on little cards and put that in our computer render.
Turn around, Joe. Turn all the way around.
And we have a water simulation to generate some computer-generated oceans that are flowing through all of the streets of New York City. This is some of the concept art that was done for this shot, and this is what the shot's looking like right now. As you can see, we kept a lot of the elements of the concept art, the building that's crashed into, all the damage underneath the building, and of course all the water. Having great concept art just really makes things so much easier because you don't have to go through 1,000 iterations trying to figure out what things are supposed to look like.
At the end of the world where the lions weep, here is the place dreams are born.
And then we also have this shot a little bit later. They've finally found the building where the lions weep. Again, we have our computer-generated water and waterfalls. The Cybertronics building itself is a scale miniature. It's in real life about 6 feet tall, I think. And the lions that go in front of it are also scale miniatures. And this time the buildings in the back are also scale miniatures. And this is what the sky really looked like that day, except there were some power lines in the back that we removed. And we have our computer-generated water with all the currents rolling through and splashes. And these other buildings in the background are scale miniatures as well.
A hybrid between Ascola Mida Arnold.
It's a pretty interesting project from the perspective of an animator because we've got